Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Quigley on Divorce, a behind-the-scenes look. I'm your host, James Quigley, and I am joined by a longtime friend of mine, I will say at this point, Lisa. Let's start over. I literally just talked to Elisa, so let's back up again, and we'll go 3, 2, 1. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Quigley on Divorce, a behind-the-scenes look. I'm your host, James Quigley. I'm joined by a friend of mine, Lizette Guerra. Lizette, first of all, let me thank you very much for joining us today. It's a rare opportunity for me to have someone that I know that has such a very real experience with the topics that we talk about. And so it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for the viewers and listeners to really, I guess, hear from you from the heart, from your perspectives. And what I always try to do with the podcast is to help educate in whatever way. And, sometimes I bring a legal perspective, but having someone as special as you join, Lizette, allows us to share a perspective with viewers and listeners that I don't have. And it's very relational for a lot of people. So again, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lizette, I guess if you go kind of back in time, I do want to get to the really cool and exciting things that you're doing in your life and for yourself and for others, but it wasn't always such a happy time. It wasn't always such a great point in your life. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, divorce is a very difficult process. And I come from a Hispanic background where it's not as acceptable. I think it's more acceptable now, but you're brought up with la familia, and you do everything to keep it together. And I did my best to do that, but I was losing myself. I was getting sick, and I was just not in a healthy situation. And when I came to your office, I was very vulnerable, scared, weak. My confidence was down the floor, and I didn't know how I was going to get through it. And actually, I left your office, and it took me another 3 years to come back. And because I just didn't have the confidence, I wasn't, ready. It took a team for me. It took having a therapist, of course, the support of your office and education and knowledge that your office provided. But it also took finding a confidence coach that kind of guided me and helped me step by step making those goals and giving me the confidence that I could do it.
Wow. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, because you said some really powerful things in there that we see a lot of, which is the process of just getting the strength to even engage in the process, let alone kind of move through it. Sometimes people, they don't realize that it's normal in a sense to, in your case, 3 years. Sometimes people, it takes a long time just to get the courage to even come up and consult with me or my team. And then it takes the courage, it could be another 3 years. And so that's, I think, really helpful for people who might be in the situation you were in way back when, where they know things aren't right. They've lost their sense of self. They don't have that sense of empowerment anymore. They're paralyzed. They don't know how to move forward. But just to know it's okay, that it's a process to actually get to just moving forward.
It's the most difficult thing. They say a death in the family is number one as a stress in your life. And I would have to disagree. I've had deaths in my family, and you accept it a little more as it's a natural process of life. But a divorce, I felt, at least in my experience, it was the hardest thing I've ever done, just going through that process. And even before I went to your office, it had been years that it was in my mind, and I had been contemplating it. And there was one book in particular that really helped me, and it was Should I Stay or Should I Go? That was a book that was very helpful, and I read it like 3 times. It had like all the different scenarios, and I went through it all, and my answer kept coming up that I should go. But even that, I still didn't have that confidence. I still wanted to make it work. And I know there's a lot of women that go through it, and you feel so hopeless, but there is hope on the other side. And now looking back, I kind of wish I would have done it sooner, but I wasn't ready. It took 27 years. I was married. It was a 27-year marriage, and 2 beautiful kids. But yeah, most difficult thing ever.
Was when you mention a part of family and even culture, was that something that you'd mentioned you work with a therapist and that really helped you? Were those the kind of things that you were able to address in therapy to understand that, we do have our family backgrounds and our histories and our traditions and our religious beliefs and so forth? Was that really a big piece to, working with someone to help you overcome just whatever you believed your family might think of you making the move to get divorced?
Absolutely. I would say the therapist helped me a lot in that she got to also meet my ex-husband. And so we did try to work together. And then I started working separately with a different therapist. And I think the tool that they gave me was that they are more diagnosis based. So they were able to diagnose that this was a narcissistic personality disorder. They helped me realize that it's something that would not change. So the only one that could change would be me. And I had to then start thinking differently, whereas the whole time during the marriage, I was thinking, well, if only I do this, maybe he'll change. Or if I do that, maybe he'll change. Or if I speak to him in this way, maybe he'll change. So that was such a key point that I learned from the therapist, that this person will not change. I mean, it's very, very, very rare that a person does. And so then I was the one that would have to make the change. And I would either have to learn to accept this and how to better live with it, or B, I needed to go. And in most cases, I have read that it is better to go. There's safety, there's your emotional wellness. There's so many parts of the person that can be damaged by staying.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because the whole concept of narcissism, and probably in the last decade of my practice, it's really become more pronounced, where they put a name to it and you see the patterns and the behaviors. And I've done some studying, I've written a couple of articles on it, and you're absolutely right. The concept of working on what you can control, what you can change in yourself is really what we try to preach as well. And it's so good that you got that advice, because that really, people get stuck in that. They've been gaslit to believe that they're not a good spouse, that they're not, they should do more and they're the problem. And you really get to believe that. And, even from my perspectives, seeing this, I think that type of abuse is far worse. Well, I shouldn't say far, that's not a fair thing. I think any abuse is equally bad, but the physical abuse is in that moment, it has a lasting emotional effect, but the subtlety of narcissism, because it's like, then they turn on the charm, and then it's the gaslighting on top of that, and you're always left off guard. And that's over time, you lose your sense of really belief in yourself, because you're always questioning, am I the problem? What can I do better? So it's really, I think, important for, that you share that concept of your experience, because so many people are enduring that and don't know how to manage through it.
Yes, there's so many levels of it. There's, like you said, they can be very charming. And I remember coming to your office and saying, James, but if we go to court, I don't even know if you'll believe me. He's extremely charming. He's very intelligent, very smart, very successful in his career. And you looked at me with these warm eyes and said, you were just very caring, and you reassured me, and you said, we've seen this before. You're okay. We're on, we believe you. Yeah. And that was huge for me. Through the journey, there's little moments that really stand out. And that was one of those moments. So I've always been so grateful for you and your office and your team. So that's really important. And there's the gaslighting, and there's, the charisma, there's the control. There's just so many different levels, and it's so unhealthy to stay in it. And it's just really damaging for a person's self-esteem, and you start to think you're crazy. They start making you question everything that you've said, and you start asking yourself, did I say that? I don't remember saying that. And there's just so many levels of it. So the therapist was key in the diagnosis and helping me realize that I wasn't one to change, either accepting or going. And then the coach, I think, was the one that just built my self-esteem. She made me go back and remember, before I met this person, the amazing things that I had done. What are some of the things that you have done, before you met this person? And there are things that I had forgotten about. I was an NFL cheerleader. I had been on some TV commercials. I had done like really fun, cool things. I danced in a couple Super Bowls. And all of those things, of course, throughout the marriage were diminished as being worthless and good for nothing. And so I had forgotten about those things. And the coach helped me remember, you've done great things, and you can continue to do great things, and you are worthy, and you have a lot of value. And so the coach slowly rebuilt my confidence. And then we build a step-by-step goals that I could do to continue to build my confidence and to continue to do this process of actually leaving.
How long of a period of time did you work with a personal therapist and then the confidence coach? Like, was it for a year? Was it a couple months? Couple years? How long?
Yeah, the process with the therapist was 4 years. And that's only because when I first started, I had convinced him to go finally. And so he was trying to make some changes, or, and so that included that. And then we realized what the diagnosis was, and that there wasn't going to be change. And then I moved on to working with the therapist by myself. So that whole process was 4 years. But it wasn't until I added the coach at the very end that started to build that confidence, that really sped things up for me. And so from the time that I started working with the coach, then it was 1 year to me actually setting those steps to leave. And in my case, the way it worked is I left the city. Otherwise, it just wasn't working. And so the coach helped me make those steps. Where is a safe place that you can go? My mother was here in Tampa, Florida, so I had that safe space to go to. Okay. And so, it's going to be different for everyone, but having that coach that last year really was the key to speeding things up.
Wow. And when we close out our conversation here, I'm going to want not only to the extent you're comfortable, how can people follow you, reach you, and in doing that too, if you're comfortable sharing the names of counselors or coaches that have helped you along I think it's a big part of what we're trying to do is just build this network of help that's out there for people. And I love what you're saying about the coach, because I think at some point, and there's all types of different kinds of therapies, I think sometimes it's very, very good to understand yourself, your emotions, your family of origin, and all of these things. But then at some point, you got to do something with it.
Exactly.
And that's not always an easy transition. So I think that having, and I never even heard of the term confidence coach. So I'm really interested in that. I think it's really, really cool. And I can totally see how that catapulted you from this self-reflection and analysis to action, which is really the hard part.
Absolutely. So the coaching is more forward motion and thinking. They're both important, obviously, but the therapy was more on your history, understanding your past, understanding why this was a little harder for me because of my background and my upbringing, going a little bit towards my history, whereas the coaching was more about, okay, we know this now. How can we take steps to move you forward? And what can we do just one day at a time, one small step? And so they were very small steps that I felt comfortable with. So you don't want to take very large steps at one time, right? But there were baby steps and it worked. It really worked. And I don't even know if you know this, but I am now a confidence coach.
Really? Okay. Well, tell me, because I know we wanted to kind of get into where you are today, but tell me then, as a confidence coach, is it something where you're doing that kind of as a side business? Can people reach out to you, and how could they get in touch with you if they need that help, if they're ready to kind of take the step, like you said, moving forward? How do people reach out to you?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, my website is lizetteguerra.com. And then so they can reach out to me that way, or
Lizette, spell your last name just so they have the right.
So it's Guerra. It's Lizette, Lizette, and Guerra is Guerra.com. And then I also have my Instagram page. It's Lizette's Coaching, Lizette Guerra Coaching. So you can reach me that way. But the way it all started is I fell in love with the practice of yoga. I built a lot of confidence through yoga. So when I first got the divorce, when it was final, the very next day I signed up to take teacher training for my yoga YTT. And I started in that journey and then started teaching yoga. Later, I started offering yoga retreats. It turns out that, my past life, I was told that I couldn't travel by myself. I wouldn't have the knowledge to do so, which now I think it's ridiculous. And so now not only do I travel by myself, I take 15 and 20 people with me. So I started offering yoga retreats. And then I also offer a course online for a healthy lifestyle. So I really turned all the things that I was passionate about into sustaining and having a business as well. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, but I need to help other women. I just know I'm not the only one going through this. And as a matter of fact, I have come across other women that have come to my retreat or have met me at the yoga studio, but I didn't have the tools to actually guide them like my coach guided me. So I finally did my training. I went back to school to learn, and now it's like a full circle that I'm now able to give back and also coach other women to take those steps. And
that is amazing. That's so, I'm so proud of you, number one, but just there's so many cool layers to that. What you just said about helping other people, helping other women, there's such a need for that. Again, I can provide legal advice. I can provide whatever understanding I can as somebody who has to walk you through the process. I have to get a good result for you and so forth. But you having been through everything a lot of people have been through and being able to relate to that, but then also find that way to propel them out of that. And then not only to talk about it, but then, what you're doing in terms of going back to school, getting that education, becoming a yoga instructor, which I think is just super cool. All these things are, it's really, really part of why I was so invigorated to say, let's get you on and tell this story, because, some people they're not able to take that second piece, which is the action piece, and say, how do I move forward in my life? And they get stuck. And so having somebody that's been through it, that's doing these wonderful things that you are, super cool. Let me ask you, you mentioned, like, for example, yoga retreats. Is that something you have on your website, or is that a separate website? How do people, if someone said,
it's all on my website. Right now, if they go to my website, my last yoga retreat, which was in Greece, that information is there. They can see pictures of the retreat. And then the next retreat will be in Costa Rica, and that will be in May. So that information will be on the website soon, but they can go in there for now and take a look at what we did in Greece and see some of the pictures and get an idea what that was like. But that was an amazing one as well.
That's awesome. And if somebody said, hey, listen, I'm still here in Chicago, wherever they are, I know you're in Florida. If they said, boy, I really wish I could connect with you, do you do things virtually, or do you do things through Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually am working with a woman right now who is in Greece. And and I have a woman in Chicago actually. So yeah, thank God for, Zoom. This is really a one big universe that we can all connect. It just makes it so easy. So absolutely, I'm available. And I'm available in 2 languages. I can speak Spanish as well.
Wonderful. Wow, that is amazing. So let me ask you this, from the time, just to kind of give people again that perspective. It took you almost 3 years to actually say, okay, I'm going through the divorce. The divorce then took a period of time. And then from the time you finalized your divorce, was it the next day I'm applying for, my yoga instructor? Did it take you a year to kind of process? Like, what was the evolution of coming out of the divorce to where you really started to be able to put the wheels in motion with all these really cool things you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was baby steps. I knew that I wanted to get my yoga teacher training. During my marriage, exercise really gave me that space of, releasing all that energy. And then I found yoga, and yoga was such a safe space. And I remember sometimes in Shavasana, which is our last relaxing pose, tears would just roll down my eyes. It was just such a healing. When you practice yoga, you really connect with yourself. And when you take the time to meditate, you start to really listen to your feelings. And so I was becoming much more in tune with what was going on in my life, with what my emotions were telling me. Instead of staying busy, and avoiding the emotions and the feelings, yoga made me sit with my feelings and made me realize so much. So it was such a key part as well of me going through this journey that I always knew as soon as I get a divorce, I'm going to become a yoga instructor. So that was my first step. And, there was some confidence that needed to be built there too. I remember teaching my first class thinking, wow, will anyone even show up? And, and then slowly people started to come. I started getting better at it, more confident at it, and classes started to fill up. And one woman came up to me one day and said, hey, do you do yoga retreats anywhere? I'd like to go with you. I really love your classes. And I said, yes, but it wasn't true. So I said, of course I do, of course. So I went home and I said, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so that's when I put my first retreat together, and it was a success. It sold out within like 3 days. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And so I just started to realize when you do things for the right reason and being true to who you are, things just start to align and happen as they should.
Yeah.
So those were the first. And then what happened with COVID is the group classes went away, traveling went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, well, I've got to do something different. I did do some private sessions over Zoom, but then I developed a lifestyle course. People were asking me for healthy recipes. They were asking for YouTube videos. And so I put together a healthy lifestyle program, and it's called Dewey because we detox. We learn how to eat well. I put everyone on their own workout regimen, and I teach them how to use yoga for stress reduction and connectivity. So they learn how to connect with themselves. So I also have that on the website now. That has stayed as part of the program. And now I also have the life coaching. So it has just been a journey. And I would just recommend anyone that's going through this to not look at the end picture and get overwhelmed, because it can sound overwhelming. Like, how did you do all these different things? Just follow what works for you, what brings you joy, what lights you up, what makes you happy. Whether it's working with children, or whether it's working in the theater, just go to that makes you happy and brings you joy, and then follow that path, and everything else will just come together.
Wow. I mean, that's really, really good advice too, because it can seem overwhelming. It's almost like in a divorce. I think of that sometimes. I'll have a conversation with an individual and I'm saying, you're so focused on what it's going to look like at the end. What am I going to get? How am I going to live? How am I going to, and you haven't even decided to move forward. So it's just, we'll take this step by step. Some steps are a little easier. And then once you take that first step, then it kind of builds. And it almost sounds like that's what happened with you. I said, I just want to get certified as a yoga instructor. And then all of this cool stuff sort of evolved from that first step.
And the thing is, once you don't have that negativity over your head telling you can't do this, you're not good enough, you don't know what you're doing. Once you get that voice out of your head and out of that negative cloud and that negative space, you will just feel so much better, so open and free, and your creativity will flow and you'll find yourself again. It's just such a beautiful place to be able to be completely free to be who you are and who you were intended to be all along. Because when you're in a relationship like that, you lose yourself. You're so busy trying to avoid the next big conflict, or you're walking on eggshells because you don't want anything to upset that person. You can't think freely. And so it will just start to happen once you get out of that negative space. But you're right. I remember going through that time of, how will I pay my bills, and how will I survive, and how, what I would tell someone is just don't worry about it. It will be, that's your team. Your team did that perfectly. And that's why it takes that team, right? So I would say your office is kind of in charge of that, of making sure that person is secure, that you're going to be safe, you're going to be secure, and you're going to have all your needs met, and everything that is yours will be yours. And so I would just tell them, don't worry, you trust your lawyers, trust your therapist, and trust your coach.
And above all, trust yourself. I spoke with a woman today.
Yeah, very good point.
And I remember talking to her, and I get this a lot, where I listen to all the things she's saying to me. And what I said to her is, I said, listen to yourself, because she's saying all this stuff, but I said, if you listen to yourself, you'll start believing what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of that transition to being able to find yourself again. And I said, trust your gut. I said, you have a gut for a reason, right? You have those instincts that are telling you something. But when you're programmed to always do, okay, I have to walk on eggshells, like you say, I have to, careful, I don't want to have another explosive episode. It's really hard to then flip that off and say, okay, what about me? What am I feeling? And, I go back to even what you said before about in therapy, when they started talking about who were you before you got married? Mm-hmm. And, Lizette was pretty cool back then, and, had a lot of really exciting things going, a good energy, and that sort of got taken from you. And that's, to me, I think the process of the actual starting a divorce, I think, starts to bring that back. And I encourage people, to the extent they can, to physically separate, not be in the same home during the process, because that negativity, that gaslighting, it's still there, and it just keeps you stuck in that kind of a controlled environment, and you can't find yourself.
I agree. Separating, it's the best. It's safer. It took, it took me leaving physically and coming to Florida, having my space to think clearly, not having that negativity over my head, to be able to start feeling good about myself again. So again, everyone's journey is different, but I do think that is a safer, healthier way to go, so that you can start listening and feeling yourself. And if you're in a relationship right now and you're waking up every day with anxiety is a message from your body. It's talking to you, but you can't really hear yourself unless you get away. And so it's getting away and having that space to yourself. And that's why I found so much peace with yoga, because although it was only an hour of day, in that hour, I was connecting with those emotions and feelings. And I started to realize, this anxiety is coming from this unhealthy marriage, and putting that together, because otherwise we go around trying to be busy and telling ourselves, no, it's not that. No, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
No, I think he'll stop. Oh, he really didn't mean it. And making all those excuses and staying in that for such a long time is just not good. It's not good. No one deserves to live like that. Yeah.
No, and I think you're so right too when you say, and maybe I'm paraphrasing it, but everybody's journey is different. So, I think you have to be comfortable too with your own facts and circumstances. And, like even on the financial side of a divorce, not everybody has what the other person has in terms of their family's wealth or income and those kinds of things. But one thing I always talk about is no matter what you have, when you get divorced, whatever it is you get, as much or as little as it may be, it's yours.
Absolutely.
And that to me is such an empowering piece too. And sometimes people, will make referrals to people, to financial advisors or estate planning lawyers or people to help them in their financial affairs, because maybe they always felt like, I can't get divorced because I don't know what we have. I don't know how to manage money. You can find help for those things. And then when you start to learn about it, like, all of a sudden now, hey, I can pay my bills and I'm living comfortably and I'm starting a business and some of those kinds of things. And so it really is a step-by-step process. And I think you're spot on when you say it's an individual journey. Everyone's unique. But for me, when I listen to you and your story and I see you from before and after, first of all, it's very rewarding for me, because, sometimes not everybody is able to take those steps, but also, the fact that you've been through all of that and here you are giving back and making yourself available to others to help, that paying it forward concept. I mean, I said before, and I'm just really proud of you. I think what you're doing is amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. And going back to that financial piece, and this is something that many women don't realize, but when you are with a narcissist, you don't really truly know what your finances are, because they're controlling so many things, right? So you may think that you're doing great and that he's putting all the money in safe places and where it belongs, but you really don't know. And so when you are able to have total control of what is yours, you're going to notice that you're not going to live in debt. Because remember, the narcissist is grandiose. They like things to be big, and they want to look and have the appearance of things being bigger and better than they actually are. And to do that, it costs money, and usually it puts you in debt. So once you can have the control of your own money, you can manage it, you can invest it, you can save it, and you will actually be in a better financial position. Because the things that I learned during the divorce were incredible. So I think also that illusion that a woman thinks that she won't be able to survive on her own and that the finances won't be the same, etc. It's actually just an illusion. You will be better off, because if, you know, the person that has a sound mind is going to manage that money so much better.
Yeah. Wow. Lizette, I cannot thank you enough, first of all, for making the time, but also, you know, again, just to kind of pay it forward to, and again, we're not a huge platform yet, but this, I do know people, they watch and they listen, and I know your story is going to resonate. And so I
Well,
really,
if I
really
can
think,
make a difference with one more person through your show, that would be worth it. You know,
you, I
no
know
one
you,
deserves to live scared or frightened. You need to be yourself and be free, be happy. It's as scary as it is. Once you get over that hump and you take that leap, it's such a exciting place. I mean, the world is open to all these opportunities, and it's exciting. It's a really exciting time.
well, it's such a great message, and you are an inspiration. And before we go again, I want to make sure, I know you said it before, but let's let everybody know your website address and also your Instagram so people can find out who you are and how to connect with you.
Thank you, James. Yes, you can find me at Lizette, Lizette, Guerra, GUERRA.com. And my Instagram is Lizette Guerra Coaching. So I look
Awesome.
forward to hearing from anyone. If they have any questions, you can reach out on my Instagram. I'm happy to just answer any questions. And I always have a free 20-minute call with anyone that's interested. So yeah, it's about
Awesome.
helping people.
Awesome. Well, Lizette Guerra, I am so thrilled that you joined me, and I think we'll find some ways to do some cool things ahead.
Absolutely. Maybe
So,
you'll join the retreat next time, you and your
yeah,
wife.
I keep saying one of these days I'm going to start doing some yoga, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. So maybe this will be my inspiration.
I just talked to a professional golfer today, and he wants to do golf with yoga. So I don't know if you're a golfer, but
I
that's
suck. I'm terrible at golf. So
but we are contemplating working together, and that could be exciting.
sounds exciting. It just sounds like the good energy is just continuing
It
to,
keeps rolling. Yes.
yeah. Well, thank you again. And for those of you that are watching and listening, I really do hope that you reach out and just, I guess, connect with Lizette if that's what's comfortable for you. I think there's such a positive energy that can come from that. Remind you that, again, this is Quigley on Divorce, a behind the scenes look. And thanks for following and listening. And we hope this is informative to you. And for everyone, have a good rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you, James.